panes of glass up in the tower have been blowing out and into her swimming pool and yard. So I don't know what we do with that, if we can do anything to help out. Maybe board it up. But they're nasty. You've been up there?
I haven't, Gene. I haven't been there. I've driven past, but I've gotten the rundown from Tony.
Yeah. It's in rather disrepair.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's on the agenda tonight, isn't it, Tony?
Yep.
Okay, we're all here, and it's 6:30 on February 16th, 2022. And so a joint meeting between the Board of Selectmen and Board of Health is now in session. First on the agenda is a coronavirus update. I understand Deb and John are both away. Do you want to cover the statistics, Tony?
Yes. Sheila, hi Sheila. It looks like you bumped me. You must have signed in on the town account, which is fine. Can you click on my screen? And you're muted. Hold on, unmute.
Yep, sorry.
That's
All
okay.
right.
If you click on if you roll your mouse over my screen, there's 3 dots in the top right corner.
Yeah.
And if you click that, there should be a make host option.
Disconnect live stream background, minimize meeting, chat, and security.
No, if you scroll over me, like my video screen, there should be 3 dots in the top right. Oh, here we go. Reclaim host.
Okay, there you go.
I think I did it.
Sorry about that. I switched it. I thought I got out because it was a meeting in progress and I switched it, but maybe it was the wrong way.
That's okay.
I apologize.
I just wanted to make sure our live stream was still okay. It looks like we're good.
Okay.
All right. Yes. John Coulon is on vacation. We'll be back, I believe, next week. And I know Deb Murphy is, I think she's on a plane, probably landing right about now. I know she was coming back today. In the last couple weeks, we've seen cases decrease, here in town and in our neighboring communities across the state. We on Friday, we rescinded the mask mandate policy on indoor properties, except for the school. So any property available, indoor space open to the public no longer is required to wear masks by the town. Certainly, public spaces operated by a business or a nonprofit, things of that nature, they have the ability to impose a mask mandate if they would like, but it's no longer required by the town and the Board of Health. Last week on Thursday night, we had before I move to that, last night, the school committee voted unanimously to end mask wearing at the Johnston School on March 7th, unless the superintendent determines with input from our public health nurse and the school nurse that the COVID-19 positive tests are spiking enough to require that mask be worn until March 21st, 2022. And that is, based on February vacation. So I think the school, and they're not alone, there are other communities doing, other school districts doing the same thing, extending their mandate to early March to see how rates react to February vacation. The state mandate is lifted on February 28th. So they don't have an option before that, and they've decided to keep it in place until March 7th at minimum. And I know that the library is also following that same schedule. They're going to remain consistent with the school because of, children being able to go both from the school to the library and vice versa. On Thursday last week, we had a COVID-19 at-home test kit distribution at the school from 5:30 to 7:30. I think we probably handed out about 600 test kits. So it was wild. I think it was very successful. There was a lot of positive feedback. For anyone that wasn't able to attend last Thursday, we will be there again tomorrow night, handing out test kits from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Johnson Elementary School. You should pull in off of Castle Road and drive around the back of the school and come up the hill towards the Flash Road entrance of the school. And that's where we will be handing them out. There's 2 tests in every kit. There's 1 kit per resident. So bring an ID, and we will, only 1 person from your household needs to come, and we will give you enough for your entire household. So hopefully we get a lot of folks come through again tomorrow night, and we will be doing that again in about a month. Let's see.
That's it for COVID. Any more on COVID, Tony?
The data gets sent to Deb every Thursday, so I don't have the most recent data. As of February 5th, there were 30 active cases. That number has gone down. I don't have the exact number in front of me though. So we're, cases are going down, tests are being distributed, the mandate has been lifted, and we're going to keep a close eye on how positive cases are affected by the February school vacation.
All right, that's good. Yeah, I'm sure the cases are well below 30 because I think all of Essex County is currently around 130 or something like that.
Yeah.
Hey, Tony, if you would express our thanks to all those volunteers.
Definitely. What a great group. Every one of them just was very happy to be there to participate and help out. They all expressed interest in getting involved in other things with the town. Everybody was in a great mood and, just very appreciative of what we were doing. So it was a great experience. Hopefully the weather cooperates tomorrow night, and we have a lot more people come through and collect their kits.
That's great.
All right, so we'll move on to opening comments. I have several announcements to make here. Winter parking ban is in effect until March 20th, 2022. All vehicles must be parked off the street from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. The Nahant DPW is seeking snowplow drivers. Contact Mary Lowe at mlowe@nahant.org or at 781-581-0026 for more information. Council on Aging Board vacancy. There's an open seat on that council. Visit nahant.org for full description of the board's mission and duties, and send letters of interest to ktaylor@nahant.org. Council on Aging part-time job opening. The job opening for an assistant to the executive director. Visit employment pages at nahant.org for more information. If interested, send cover letter and resume to ktaylor@nahant.org, or mail or drop off those letters and resumes at Town Hall on February 18th. Town Hall will be closed on Monday, February 21st. Sorry, I was checking the date on the last announcement. Yeah, so that's by Friday, if you're interested in the open job on Council on Aging. Town Hall will be closed on Monday, February 21st, in observance of President's Day. Charles Kelly Scholarship is accepting essays until April 15th, 2022. Visit the scholarship page at nahant.org for full description of essay instructions. Mail or drop off complete essay and application to Kristen Taylor at the Nahant Town Hall to complete your application for that scholarship. Just while I think of it, I know last year on the website, Tony, it said TBD on the deadline for that, and so I would just want to make sure that actually has the date of April 15th. Someone pointed that out to me at last year's town meeting. I just want to make sure that was corrected.
Okay.
Annual town election information. The election is April 30th, 2022. March 9th, 2022 is the last day to obtain nomination papers. March 11th by 5 p.m., all nomination papers must be submitted to the town clerk. March 29th by 5 p.m. is the last day to object or withdraw any submitted applications to the town clerk. April 8th by 8 p.m. is the last day to register to vote for a town election. That's important. I know in the past, some people have missed that date for registering to vote. So that's April 8th is the deadline. April 22nd by 5 p.m. Campaign finance report is due to the town clerk. So if you're applying, if you're running for a position, that's a report that needs to be submitted to the clerk ahead of the election. May 31st, 2022 by 5 p.m., 30-day campaign finance report due to the town clerk. That's sort of the follow-up paperwork to the town clerk. Visit the elections chief's page under the town clerk's page at nahant.org for more information. It's all the announcements. Jean or Mark, did you have anything to add?
I'm good, Mr. Chairman. I'm all set.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
I did want to just add, we had a meeting, joint meeting with the planning board recently, and there was a discussion about applying to the Army Corps of Engineers for habitat restoration related to Bear Pond. And there was some concern following that meeting that could interfere with the efforts, our drainage efforts for the Fox Hill Road Lowlands area. That I just want to reiterate that will not in any way interfere with our efforts in that area. So don't worry about that. That's a priority. It was voted on at last town meeting. I think Tony will have an update on that later on today, but I just wanted to reassure people that any involvement with the Army Corps related to habitat restoration will absolutely not interfere or slow our progress with the drainage of the lowlands area.
Hey, Josh, just to
Yeah.
make a correction there, I made the mistake of, during the combined meeting, I said that I thought that the planning board was using that the Army Corps of Engineers EEL project as a backdoor way of getting the Army Corps of Engineers to come in. Don't know if that was their intent or not, but I don't think that they intended to get in the way of anything else.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. And, if we accomplish our drainage goals, and that includes habitat restoration, that would be extra wonderful, but the focus is the drainage.
Right.
And, I'm glad we looked into that because it led to Kristen Kent, the chair of our Conservation Commission, putting a call into the Army Corps, and they sort of turned her on to a separate program that's more related to drainage. So, the more you learn, the more information you seek, the more opportunities present themselves. So, but I just wanted to assure anybody that will not interfere with our drainage efforts.
It worked out good.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so if there's no other opening comments, we can move on to new business.
I think you've got to approve the open space and recreation appointment.
Yeah, we have one more before that, which is the hazard mitigation plan
Okay.
discussion. I'm not sure if we have Van Du on the line.
Yes. Hi, good evening. I'm here.
Hi. So let's see, maybe I can give a little introduction, but basically we need to, the town needs a hazard mitigation plan. And a team has put that together.
We received some funding. I can help you out, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
We received some funding to hire MAPC to help us with this process. This team included, our emergency management, DPW, police, fire, myself, Conservation Commission Chairwoman, Kristen Kent, utilizing the old hazard mitigation plan, utilizing the most recent MVP, Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Plan, and working with MAPC with Van to have public meetings, gather public input on the draft, and now it's been completed. It's been reviewed by the state regulatory officials, and the next step is to have the Board of Selectmen accept it. So Van is here to expand upon my briefing and explain a little bit more about what's included in this plan.
You did a fantastic job, Tony. I did prepare a quick presentation. I don't know if that's appropriate to share screen
Yes.
and walk through with everyone.
Yes, hold on a second. Okay, you should be able to do that now.
Great. Okay. Let me know if you can see my screen.
we
We
can
can.
see it.
Great. Okay. Okay. I will try to be really brief, but Tony, thank you so much. And thanks everyone for having me here. It's been a really fun project this past 7 months or so. And so like Tony said, this is a plan update for town of Nahant. The previous one was complete back in 2014. Let's see. And so here's the team, the project team that we formed together. This is typical, and it representing department leaders across departments in town, and chairs and committees. And the idea is that to make sure that we are well covered of all aspects as much as possible in the town. And so communities are required to adopt and update their hazard mitigation plans every 5 years in order to be eligible for FEMA grants. The last plan, like I mentioned, was completed in 2014. And so this 2021 plan update has been approved by both MEMA, the state regulatory agency, and FEMA. and it is pending adoption from the town for it to be official. And so with the adoption by the town, then it will keep Nahant in good status for FEMA funding eligibility in the next 5 years. And currently there is a BRIC application, I believe, from Nahant in, and so it's essential that we make this process quick. And so generally, natural hazard mitigation planning entails looking at the following conditions. These are in general, townwide hazards for Nahant, giving the town's coastal location highly susceptible to hazards like flooding, extreme storm events, and related impacts like wind. I don't think any of this is new to all of you. And so it just, like Tony said, a review. And so we look at the team met together, 3 times since last May to discuss kind of the critical infrastructure, where are the local hazard areas, and then we also hosted public meetings in order to gather additional feedbacks and anything that we might have missed in our kind of behind the desk mapping. Here's the general development steps of a hazard mitigation plan. Like I said, we are at the end. Congratulations to you for getting the review approval pending from FEMA, which is no small feat, and done so very quickly within a month or so. And so this is an opportunity for us to really make this quickly and just for you to be eligible for additional funding from FEMA in the next 5 years. And so we, like I mentioned, we identify hazard areas, we present this to the public and got their feedback and updated the maps for you all in this 2021 plan update. And we also identify all the existing and any additional critical buildings and facilities in Nahant. It ranges from municipal facilities, elder housing, schools, pumping stations. All of the critical infrastructure are things that keep the Nahant in operations. So in total, we have about 30 of these critical facilities identified in town. And then in the next 3 slides, I just want to share, this is by no means comprehensive. It was, a long list of pages of mitigation measures, but these are the new mitigation measures included in this 2021 plan update. And it addresses, this is where the hazard mitigation planning team, the project team worked together to identify additional actions to include in here. This is kind of, important if you recall the MVP process also in terms of the high priority action list. Think of it similar to that in that, by including this in here, it will be easier to kind of pull out for funding application when it's time or when you think, it's ready for that. And so, and it's sort of like a wish list, if you may also think about it that way to help think about different projects to pursue, in the next 5 years. Or so. And if not, there has been actions carry over from previous plans as well. So it's not going to be set in stone. And in 5 years, as things change, we can also modify as well. So here we're kind of group it by the different hazards and conditions that we know are highly susceptible and major key issues or potential issues for Nahant. I want to point out also there's a BRIC project application currently in place, I believe, to help restore the coastal dune along Short Beach. So at some point, hopefully we'll hear that shortly as well. And in general, we include measures, including collaborations with neighboring communities and regional or state agency as well. So that's just a quick snapshot. And again, for the next steps, we're near the end. So just the one final stop is to get the plan adopted by the town. It will be in effect for 5 years, and the town will be eligible for pursuing FEMA mitigation grants in the next 5 years. So that's all I have, and I'm here for questions if you have any.
Well, thank you for that overview, Van. We'll certainly waste no time in adopting this hazard mitigation plan. If you'll indulge me, I'll read the resolution for adopting the Town of Nahant Hazard Mitigation Plan for 2021. Whereas the Town of Nahant established a committee to prepare the Town of Nahant Hazard Mitigation Plan for 2021 update, and whereas the Town of Nahant Mitigation Plan 2021 update contains several potential future projects to mitigate potential impacts from natural hazards in the Town of Nahant, and whereas duly noticed public meetings were held by the local hazard mitigation planning team on October 13th and December 15th, 2021. And whereas the Town of Nahant authorizes responsible departments and or agencies to execute their responsibilities demonstrated in the plan, and now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town of Nahant Board of Selectmen adopts the Town of Nahant Mitigation Plan 2021 update in accordance with Massachusetts General Law 40 or the chapter and bylaws of the Town of Nahant. And I will sign and date that. Get it to Town Hall tomorrow. So thanks again, Van. And again, thanks to the people that worked on this plan, which included Tony Barletta, Dennis Ball, Austin Antrim, Tim Furlong, Zachary Taylor, not the ex-president, but the DPW superintendent, Kristen Kent, Cal Hastings, and Mary Lowe. Thanks to you all for putting together this plan. And just again, as a reminder, as Van pointed out, this is critical for obtaining certain types of grants. So very important for the town to get this plan created and approved and adopted.
I'd just like to say the timing on this couldn't be better, because if you've noticed, Salem is just adopting a wetlands ordinance. The Globe was front page today on climate change, and everybody's talking about a 1.5 foot rise by 2030. So this is perfect timing on this. And I think in anything that we're dealing with now, according to the newspaper, we should be looking at putting permitting together with the future in store. So thank you so much. This is great.
Yeah, thank you, Van, so much for all your work. You kept our feet to the fire and kept the progress moving, which was essential so we could get this done quickly. And, I echo thank you to all of our staff that worked, very hard on this project, and the volunteers as well. For me, and also I have to thank the public that, participated in the public process, because we got a lot of good feedback from the public that we incorporated into this plan. And, one thing that was, the work never ends. There's always more to do and more preparedness to accomplish. But, looking at the old hazard mitigation plan and being able to check off some of the items that were identified, things that we've accomplished over the last 5 years, that was sometimes you lose track of those accomplishments. So that was a nice moment to kind of go through that process too. So should the board take a vote to accept the plan? I know you said you're going to sign it, Mr. Chairman, but should the board take a vote as well, just to
We can do that.
I so move, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Rock Holland, aye.
Josh Antrim, aye. Okay, that's great.
Thank you, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations to the town of Nahant. My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thanks again for your prompt work on this.
My
too.
pleasure.
Okay, we have to approve an appointment to the Open Space and Recreation Committee. Do we have a motion there?
I move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the appointment of Trish Aldrich to the Open Space and Recreation Plan Committee effective February 16th, 2022.
Second,
Any discussion? Well, this is kind of, I see Trish is on the line. Hello, Trish. It's kind of a back to the future for Trish. Many people might not know, but she was the chair of this committee 30 years ago, maybe even a little bit more than 30 years ago. So, spent a career in conservation and native plant works. And I know Trish has been involved attending all the open space meetings over the last few months and has already shown her passion for this subject. So I don't know, Trish, if you want to unmute yourself, and maybe we should vote before we congratulate. No, do you want to unmute yourself and have any comments?
I'd be very happy to serve once again on the Open Space and Recreation Committee. It's very important work, and I'm happy to lend a hand to make it happen in town.
Very good, thanks. And I know the committee's working hard to get the new open space and recreation plan issued, and I'm sure you'll be valuable resource for that. I know that's their primary goal in the coming weeks. So
Thank you very much.
Mark or Jean, any additional comments or discussion?
it
Yeah,
sounds like good, Trish, for stepping up, and look forward to working with you.
and I'd like to just say I had the opportunity of working together with Trish. What was it, 30 years ago?
I guess so.
And developing Lodge Park, and it was a great combination of people and a great team. And I think we can expect the same.
Okay, great. So with that, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Josh Antrim, aye. Next item on the agenda is request for us, the Board of Selectmen, and the Town Administrator to draft goals, Town Administrator goals for 2023. What we did last year is we all four actually wrote up our ideas for goals for the Town Administrator. And I took those submittals and kind of consolidated them into one list. And we then subsequently agreed on those goals for Tony for 2022. I think that process worked pretty well. So I'd recommend that we follow that again, and I'll volunteer myself to compile that list again. So I think you can just go ahead and write your lists, submit them to Tony and Kristen Taylor, and they can be forwarded to me, and I'll consolidate them. And then hopefully at the next meeting, we'll have one common list to go through and discuss with the administrator. Sound good?
It sounds good, Mr. Chairman. Should we sort of keep them in the same headings that we kept last year? I think it covers pretty much everything, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. We took them all, and then we took all the goals, which really weren't assigned to any bucket, and then we sort of noticed that they fell well into certain buckets: general governance, infrastructure,
budget, yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, that helps provide us a framework, and it seemed to capture everything. So yeah, let's follow that same structure, but if there's something that falls outside that structure, include that too.
Yeah, there were 4 buckets.
Pardon me?
There were 4 buckets.
4 buckets, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I look forward to seeing your goals for Tony, and I will get busy working on mine as well. Next is a vote to open and then close the annual town meeting warrant and send it to the Advisory and Finance Committee. Do we have a motion on that?
Mark,
Sure. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to open the annual town meeting warrant for submittal of articles by all town boards, committees, personnel, and the public for consideration of placement onto the annual town meeting warrant.
second,
Okay, discussion. Maybe you can give us a
Yep.
status of where we are with all those articles.
Yes, so we have our draft, our first draft of the warrant for this year's town meeting. Let me share my screen. And I can. How's that? Is that a good size? Can you read
I
it?
can read that on my laptop.
All right, so as of right now, we're planning to have our annual town meeting outside once again at Flash Road. That's, subject to change, but at the moment, we are, the way that this is drafted is that the meeting would occur as it has the last two town meetings, annual town meetings at Flash Road. Our standard articles start us off with transfers, snow and ice, prior year bills, salary and classification plan, compensation for elected positions, and then our omnibus budget, which your next item on the agenda is to go through our draft omnibus budget that we're going to be sending to the finance committee as well. Article 7, water and sewer enterprise, water and sewer paving, and rubbish enterprise. So these articles, like Article 7 and Article 9, give us the authority to raise and appropriate funds through those enterprise accounts. Article 8, water and sewer paving, authorizes us to spend here a sum of $30,000 for paving. Essentially, this is for the paving costs associated with, repairs for emergency breaks of water and sewer issues. Article 10, on an annual basis, we've spent $50,000 for out of the rubbish enterprise fund for the compost area in town. We've increased that to $60,000 this year, somewhat because of a larger amount of retained earnings that we felt we could afford to do a little bit more. And this will allow us to continue the positive progress that we've made at the compost site as far as changing how we maintain it. So this last summer, we conducted more of a consistent removal of material as residents brought compost things to the site, which has brought a lot of opportunities of success for the town, where we were able to maintain that site instead of letting it build up over time and needing to spend a large amount of money to remove material at a later date. By being a little bit more consistent with it and removing material that's been down there for many years, we are, not only revitalizing the area and establishing better protocols and procedures, but we're also, creating, that is a low-lying area. So we're actually creating stormwater storage by removing material from there too. So we're continuing with that process. These next two articles, 11 and 12, are related to our revolving accounts. They're pretty technical, nothing really new or changes there. Article 13 is OPEB, other post-employment benefits. We are continuing our past 3-4 year trend of contributing $25,000 to this account. Article 14 is our stabilization article. So the town has a stabilization fund. Since I started in 2018, we began contributing $100,000 on an annual basis into this account. Last year, we increased that to $125,000. This year, because of, and again, I'll explain this on the next item on the agenda, but this year, because of the influx of free cash, we feel we have the ability to contribute even more. And this is an appropriate use of that free cash. So we are doubling our transfer and putting $250,000 into our stabilization account, which would bring the total close to $700,000, which when I started in 2018, there was only just around $100,000 in that account. So we've made a great amount of progress and we want to keep doing that. The Division of Local Services recommends that you maintain about a 10% amount of your budget, of your total budget in your stabilization account. Our $14 million budget means $1.4 million in our stabilization account. So this article would get us about halfway there in a short period of time. Article 15, standard article that we have in here, borrowing of $100,000 to use towards paving. Article 16, this is a new article required to us by the state. It's the release of funds from Transportation Network. So every community gets a certain percentage of funds that are paid for through rideshare networks. So Uber and Lyft. So every time someone uses an Uber or a Lyft to come to the town, a small percentage of their cost goes to this account that gets transferred to the town. And we are required to appropriate those funds at town meeting. So as you can see here, it's only, it's less than $600. So it's not much, but it's a requirement of the state. 17 will be community preservation articles, which are will be filled in at a later date. Article 18, sewer infrastructure. This is a large borrowing article that will be this will be one of the bigger topics of discussion at the upcoming town meeting. It's been a large topic of conversation at our last two town meetings. We have applied for additional borrowing authorization through the state revolving fund, the sewer revolving fund, through the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust, which is a long-term, low-interest borrowing. And we've applied for what we've applied for, combined with what we've been authorized for by the Clean Water Trust, is around $12 million that we need town authorization to then borrow for. The way that this program works, we're utilizing it right now on the Linway sewer replacement job. It's similar to a construction loan. So you get approved by the state and the town to borrow through here, and you only borrow money from this account as you spend it for a job. So this amount is going to allow us to make critical repairs that have been identified at our Ward Road pump station, allow us to take steps towards repairing our Willow Road force main, which is also in critical need of repair, and will also allow us to spend funds on II improvements, which we are required to through regulatory proceedings by the DEP.
So Tony,
II, go ahead.
I had a quick question on that. So it's a $12 million. So would that be like a RANS, a revenue anticipation note? So you spend with anticipation of receiving those revenues if it's approved by the town?
Yes, so essentially, if this gets approved by the town, and then we go put a job out for bid, and we award a contract, based on the total amount of that contract, we will then do a RAN borrowing, like you mentioned. So as invoices are delivered to the town for the job as it gets done, we pay them with the RAN, and then the Clean Water Trust pays us back. So we pay off the RAN. At the end of the job, it goes into a long-term bond.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you.
Our engineer that Wright Pierce, who's the engineer for the Linway job, has conducted a in-depth updated assessment of the Ward Road pump station and has identified $4 to $5 million worth of work that needs to occur. And that pump station is, it is the heart of the system. The good news is we are currently underway in replacing the force main, the most critical needs of the force main that have led to a tremendous amount of spending on emergency repairs. So by doing that job, we eliminate one of the most, critical needs in the system, but there are more. And the next one is Ward Road Pump Station, Willow Road Force Main. And then because of state regs, we're required to make improvements on II, which is essentially clean water getting into our sewer system throughout the system around town. And that can be because of broken pipes. That can be because of illegal connections of, sump pumps or gutters. There's a number of different things that lead to that. When we have a heavy rain or flood-like event, our flows almost double, if not a little bit more. So we know, based on that data, that when the water table rises, when we have a tremendous amount of water rainfall, it's getting into our sewer system. And then we're paying to, not only are we adding stress to the system, but we're paying to treat water that doesn't need to be treated. So a lot of work to be done. We wouldn't be borrowing the full $12 million in the, next year. This would allow us to accomplish, many sewer goals over the next few years.
Tony, I spent the weekend reading that engineering report on the Lowlands pump station. Thrilling reading, but
Yeah.
I would recommend that you see if you can get that in the PDF form. Excuse me, and put it online so the public could take a look at it. It's not all that technical. I think that people could understand it if they read it, and I would encourage you to try to put that up online and allow people to take a look at it.
Sure.
Because it is a sort of the heart of our wastewater treatment in the heart. If that doesn't work, we're in big trouble.
The long story short is the components, the building itself is in pretty good shape. The roof needs some work, but the components within the building of that system are a 25-year lifespan, and we're on like year 40. So we're in dire need of critical, urgent repairs. We are, in one perspective, that's great that we've been able to get so much out of our current system for so long. But on the other perspective, it's scary to think that, that system could cease, operation at any moment. So we need to make these repairs. It's critical for our town.
Hey, Tony, how do you identify, or how does someone, an engineering firm, identify where water enters into the system, into the pipe, the sewage pipes?
Well, we've already conducted a camera project where we actually sent a camera and removed a ton of debris through our sewer lines around town. So we were able, through that, by actually sending a camera, we were able to identify where breaks existed. We also have satellite pump stations around town that have their own flow meters, and you can identify where, those high flows are generally coming from based on, where they are in those satellite pump stations. So
do we have a lot of that? Do we have a large amount?
Yes, like I said, when we have a rain event and a high tide at the same time, of course, a flooding event, but our flows double. So, that's not because people are all of a sudden running a lot of water in their homes. It's because that rainwater or stormwater or tidal flow is getting into our system.
Thank you.
Basically, Gene, it's a differential between, we know from our water meters, how much wastewater is leaving people's homes. And we also know how much wastewater we're pumping from lowlands over to land. So the difference between what we're charging residents for flows out of their home and what we're pumping over to land, that's the difference. And it's pretty significant.
Understood. Thanks, Mike.
The next article is sewer capital. This is utilizing funds from our retained earnings. The town is in need of a new front end loader and a dump truck at the DPW, critical pieces of equipment for our operations. Article 20 is authorization similar to Article 18. However, this is for water utility. So MWRA customers have the ability to borrow for zero interest through this program up to $500,000. This is in every town meeting article since I've been here, in every town meeting warrant. And so it's here once again, allows us to, if authorized, allows us to borrow to, make progress on necessary water improvements, water utility improvements in town. Article 21 is a capital item. It's a fire truck. The town fire department needs a new fire truck, the cost of which is about $700,000. This article, the total in this article may change. We have some funding through the American Recovery Act, that ARPA funds through COVID relief, that we may be able to supplement the cost of this fire truck with that. So maybe borrow half and use ARPA funds for the other half. I will say, the town hasn't paid for a fire truck in many, many years because we've been able to, with our current fire chief, he's been able to receive grants to pay for those vehicles. So if we could get away with only having to borrow for half of one in the amount of time that we have, we're doing very, very well. Chapter 90 highway, this is a standard article. This allows us to utilize the funds appropriated to us through Chapter 90 for paving. Article 23 are property tax exemptions. This is an article that was sent to us from the Board of Assessors.
I
And it has
noticed,
to
Tony,
do-
that I read the this chapter 59 over the weekend also. And I think these exemptions are mostly for veterans. It appears to me.
Right.
Some of them are very interesting. I think clause 22C, I think is for veterans of the Spanish American War. I'm thinking, how many do we? How many do we? And there's another one for veterans of the Chinese expedition something. I don't know, but they're all worthy causes, I'm sure.
Yeah,
You're right, Mark. Clause 22 is specific to various different clauses for veterans. We only currently have been able to grant clause 22 small a through F and clause 22 capital A and clause 22 capital E. I don't know, but we might as well have adjusted all of them equally, whether we grant them or not. So I
Well,
just,
if there was a veteran from the Spanish American War, they deserve an exception for sure.
yeah, all right. And the
Uh,
last one, clause 41D, is the elderly exemption. And all these clauses haven't changed in 20 years. So basically, $250 was added to each of the current amounts that have been granted. So clause 22, small a through F, has been $400. We're now saying they should be $650. The clause 41D is $750, and we're saying it should go up to $1,000.
Thank you, Sheila. The next 4 or 5 articles here are currently being drafted. Briefly, our stormwater bylaw through our MS4 permitting has been identified as something that needs to be updated. So we're working with our MS4 consultant on how, what those updates, what is needed under those updates and how this will be drafted. The next one is ZBA membership. There's a conflict between our original, the original enacting language for the ZBA and the most recent change to our zoning bylaws. So we want to clear that up. It requires a town meeting vote. Council on Aging kitchen. This is a capital item using funds combined with CPC, previously authorized CPC funds to make necessary improvements to the Council on Aging kitchen. The next one is public safety / NFD / NPD building study. So we've had this, this looming issue of our public safety buildings, police and fire, both needing tremendous amounts of work. They're tremendously old, and we are, looking at ways to take steps towards, there was some conversation in the past. There was a committee formed to start discussing, the future of these 2 buildings and or if they become one, where they would be located, what they would look like. This article would include some funding so that we can hire a consultant to help us with that process. The next dog bylaw, there are there are some conflicts in the current dog bylaw and what is compared to like what we are the violations that we issue and what's in the dog bylaw conflict with each other. So this is correcting those issues. Again, that article is being drafted. The next is a call firefighter reserve police retirement. This would make our reserve officers and call firefighters eligible to buy back years of service towards their retirement, no cost to the town. That's also being drafted. Town stormwater improvements, as you mentioned earlier, Mr. Chairman, we have signed on a stormwater engineer. They will be working to develop an alternative analysis of different stormwater improvement projects that the town could consider to help with those issues. This article and a dollar amount, a borrowing amount, would be used to pay for some of those, depending on what the results of the study is. The next one is the only citizen petition that came in by the deadline. And the last one is, which also has to do with drainage and stormwater issues. And then the last one is continued committees.
Mr. Chairman, my only suggestion is, and we don't need to decide tonight, but we might want to think about this issue about stormwater, the article on stormwater drainage and the citizens petition, and what was voted on last year. There's a lot going on here. So as we work through this process prior to the town meeting, it might be a good idea to sort of invite the citizens from the petition to join us in a public meeting to discuss that, because there may be some conflicts there, and it might be best if we sort of resolve those conflicts prior to town meeting. So just an idea, just a suggestion, and we'll see how things develop, but it might be a good opportunity to have that discussion.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And in the town administrator's report, I think he's going to talk about the Lowlands engineering study. And, when we look at the schedule for the deliverables of that, they won't be complete before town meeting, but some of the items will be. And so we'll start to get informed during the course of that engineering study. And those may help us tailor the article most appropriately as the information comes in from that study.
Does the stormwater engineering, the article we're talking about, is that become an extension of the floodplain article that we approved last year for the 100,000? I think Mark's right. Totally right.
We're utilizing last year's article to pay for the engineer. So the plan has been, let's hire an engineer to come in, look at all these stormwater issues we're having in the lowlands and around town, but prioritizing the lowlands issues. Looking at, the outfall pipe, the stormwater system, the drainage ditch, all of those issues, and kind of do an analysis of their feasibility, their permittability, what value they provide to the town, if improved, at what cost, and kind of set us on a path instead of just kind of picking and choosing what we think might be the most important thing to do first. Have them really do this in-depth analysis and say, this, if you want to accomplish these goals, here's our recommendation of how you could do that.
So have we utilized to some degree the monies that were approved at the last town meeting? And do we have an engineering firm in place?
Yes. Yeah. So that's what Josh was just mentioning, is we've contracted this firm called Dubois and King to perform that work.
Have they begun that?
I signed the notice to proceed yesterday.
Okay.
So they've already come out and done a site visit. I've connected them with Lighthouse Survey, who already did, the flyover, so that they can speed up the process on the on the topographical survey. So they've made some steps, but officially have been noticed to proceed as of yesterday.
I'm asking because Mark made a great point, and that is that we don't want it all to come together at once and not know which direction we're gonna go in.
Yeah, as
I
Tony
think-
said, Gene, I mean, I think we need to get this engineering done, and we need to follow the science and the engineering.
Right.
And that's what we need to do. And before we spend more money, let's get that engineering and science done. And then let's make decisions based on that.
I thought that's what I said, but you're right.
Yeah, you're both spot on. I mean, I think that the issue with the same thing as last year, the issue that I foresee with the citizens petition is the language being very strict, very limited. Our article will include the goals of the citizen petition, but will be written more broadly so that it can include the recommendations of the eventual, engineering report. So it's more about the language, I think, than it is the topic that we're trying to solve. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Then just adding one more thing, Tony, you and I discussed the other day about the Army Corps involvement that was mentioned earlier in the meeting, and agreed that it made sense to get this engineering study completed so we're more informed when we approach and apply to the Army Corps for their potential grants. So when we get this engineering study completed, we'll have that information, which will help guide us in what's most appropriate to request of the Army Corps, and things sort of fall in line.
Yeah.
Is it true that these Army Corps of Engineers studies take 3 years to 4 years? The feasibility studies?
That's what Kristen reported to us at the last meeting after her discussion with the Army Corps. So that's the most I know about that.
Yeah, I mean, she described sort of a series of steps, right, that sum up to that, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So that's there's the draft warrant. I think you voted to open. I think what you now would do is vote to close and send it to the Finance Committee.
Hold on,
Yeah.
let's pull it up here. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to accept and close the annual town meeting warrant as presented, and to send it to the Advisory and Finance Committee to begin taking positions, with the understanding that ongoing review will occur by the Board of Selectmen, and that modifications may occur at a later time.
Second,
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Josh Antrim, aye. And we have a vote to approve the FY23 budget adjustment and send to the Advisory and Finance Committee. A motion on that?
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to endorse the town administrator and selectmen budget for FY23, with the understanding that ongoing review will occur by the Board of Selectmen, and that modifications may occur at a later time, and forward it to the Finance and Advisory Committee for the ongoing review in the FY23 budget development process.
Second,
Discussion. I don't know if you
Yeah.
want to.
The only discussion I had, and Tony, you can probably get into this, but I did have the opportunity to meet with Tony and Allison, and I reviewed the FY23 budget, and I think they are on a good track.
I agree.
one of the issues that I saw, there was a large amount of free cash, and let me just say that free cash is not actually free cash, but it was substantially high, and I think Tony and Allison explained to me why that was. And I think they are taking appropriate means in terms of using that free cash. So pretty much I was pretty satisfied with the way they're approaching this.
Yeah,
Likewise.
same here, and I was the breakdown of how the free cash might be distributed looked pretty sensible to me. It's good to see our stabilization fund continue to grow. It's come a long way over the last few years, so I think we're clawing our way to a pretty stable financial situation here.
I think it's important for people to know that Tony and Allison took the time to sit us all down individually and go through each one of these articles and through the budget. Not the articles, but the budget and any changes added or deducted. It was really interesting. For me, anyhow.
I just wanted to say, Tony, that, based really on the last several years of hard work and getting us to this point. I mean, I remember in 1996 when I first started a position, I had a free cash deficit, and that's not something you want. And so, because of your hard work and Allison's and your staff, I think we're in a good shape. Thank you.
Thank you. This budget is the product of a lot of hard work by not just Allison and I, but all of our department heads, all of our, committees that have submitted, financially sound requests. We met with every department head, put together this budget, looked at what our revenues are projected to be, and try to come up with a budget that follows the policies that we agreed with the finance committee on in 2018, prioritizing our bond rating and following the guidance of the Division of Local Services by, building our reserves, paying down debt, using free cash appropriately for one-time capital purchases, and being, having a sound approach to your operational expenses and how they grow from year to year. So what's unique about this year's budget, as Mark had mentioned, is we have a large amount of free cash, plus we have a significant amount of ARPA funds. That's the COVID relief money, which is also, can be used in a similar manner as free cash. So I'll say that, this budget on our operating expenses, which are, salaries, insurances, things that are reoccurring, assessments, things that are reoccurring that we have to pay for every single year. We're only looking at a 2.91% increase over last year. So that's a very good number to be at. And then a lot of our, extended process was really how are we going to spend, that extra amount of free cash and ARPA funds. And we've utilized that to, try to accomplish necessary capital investments. As I mentioned, putting extra money into stabilization and paying down debt. And I think that we've created a pretty good budget here that I am, happy to send to the finance committee and sit down with them and explain it. And, we're continuing to work on this budget We'll send it to department heads tomorrow as well and work with them on any types of revisions that, any mistakes that we may have made. And for the public, you know, the omnibus budget, understanding how the omnibus budget works and how you build it. You know, the finance committee meets every other Wednesday that the Board of Selectmen aren't meeting. So they'll be meeting next Wednesday. And as we approach town meeting, we tend to do, you know, citizen forums where we'll go through the omnibus budget and we'll go through every article and really kind of allow for residents to ask questions and kind of have more of an informal dialogue to help prepare them for town meeting. So for tonight, I won't go in depth on this, on the budget, but we're very pleased with where we are. I think it's a great first draft to be sent to the finance committee. We'll have plenty more conversation about it as we approach town meeting.
Tony, I know that I used to get a lot of questions at town meeting about what is free cash. So you might want to like give it like a 1 minute explanation of what is free cash.
Free
and
cash,
how it should be used.
free cash is not free. It is not cash. It is what I like to refer to as a Christmas bonus. It's like it's a sum of money that, you know, you don't know if you're going to get it at Christmas time, and you don't know how much it's going to be. So you can't really build your family's budget off of a Christmas bonus. When you get it, you're either going to put it away into your savings account, or you're going to pay down that credit card bill, or you're going to buy, you know, maybe you wanted to do your kitchen over. You know, it's those types of things that you're going to use that money for. You don't want to use it. You don't want to buy, you know, a car you can't afford and have a 5-year payment on it that you don't know if you're going to get a Christmas bonus next year and can afford to pay that bill. So you really want to use free cash for one-time capital investments, building up your reserves like stabilization and OPEB, and paying down debt.
Excellent,
Thank
Tony.
you.
Thank you. I mean, basically, it's we appropriate a budget every year. The town meeting appropriates the budget for every town meeting. They don't appropriate revenues, but we set our revenues, what we think they're going to be. We set our budget, what we want it to be. Town meeting votes on that budget. At the end of the fiscal year, maybe departments haven't spent everything in their budget. And what's left at the end of the fiscal year goes into free cash.
Yeah. Yes. So where it comes from is basically a surplus of revenues that you didn't predict. So you brought in more money than you expected, and you spent less money than you planned to. And that difference is what creates your free cash amount.
Perfect. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so roll call vote on the budget.
Gene Canty, aye.
Marshall and I.
Josh Antrim, aye. Ongoing business, RNAV update from the CAC meeting on February 10th. I'm gonna guess that Dan's gonna give us an update.
Yeah, pardon me, there was not much to discuss. They did not, the CAC did not address our RNAV 22 left at that meeting. I believe now it's really up for the Massport board to take up, and they're meeting tomorrow. It doesn't seem to be on their agenda, so I'm not quite sure when it will be. They'll meet again March 17th. So nothing new to report on the RNAV 22 left.
All right, thanks. 9 Little Nahant Road update. I know, Tony, you had some summary words you wanted to
Yes.
discuss.
And if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, I think what I'll do is give a kind of a brief overview of what's going on with 9 Little Nahant Road. And then I know that we have a number of folks on the call that are interested in this topic. So, maybe we could, if it's okay with you, allow for a little bit of a citizens forum specifically to this conversation.
Yeah, that sounds appropriate.
So 9 Little Nahant Road, which is the old Howe estate, the town has applied for a CPC application, or has submitted a CPC application for funds to purchase this property. However, this property is controlled by the estate of the, forgive me for the last name of the family, Dan
Bizarres.
Yes, Bizarres. This property has a reverse mortgage on it, which is through HUD, and there's a sum of deferred taxes and interest owed to the town. That property was scheduled for an auction on the 15th, yesterday. And there's a couple different results that could occur with that auction. The town cannot bid on this property. We do not have town meeting authority to place a bid on this property. The town would only, it's an important distinction to make, is that the town would only enter into negotiations with HUD to purchase the property should the auction be unsuccessful. The deadline for CPC applications was back in January. So what we know today, we didn't, some of what we know today, we didn't know back when the application for CPC was due. So we put that application in to make sure that it was available to us should we need to utilize it. But again, we cannot bid on this property during the auction. There's a couple different results. I like to think of it as 3 different results that could occur with the auction. One, no bids are submitted, or bids of such a low amount are submitted that HUD doesn't accept it, and then they take ownership of the property and then could enter into a negotiation for a direct sale. 2 is a bid is submitted to a level that HUD is willing to accept, but isn't high enough that it would make HUD whole on what they're owed in the reverse mortgage and make the town whole on what's owed in the deferred taxes. There is a ongoing discussion between the town and HUD about who gets paid first. The town is very much taking the position that we should be paid first, and HUD is very much taking the position that they should be paid first. Ultimately, that could need to be determined through a legal proceeding. And then option 3 would be someone bids a price that is so high that it makes HUD whole and it makes the town whole. And then there's no need to go through a legal proceeding to determine who gets paid first, because both of us would get paid. So in option 2 or in option 3, the property would be sold to whoever submitted that highest bid. The town would not be in any position to purchase a property after that, and the CPC application would essentially be removed because that would no longer be a possibility.
Can
So-
a private buyer buy that property without going to auction?
No,
No,
HUD actually doesn't own the property right now. The estate does. So only should the auction be unsuccessful, will then HUD take ownership of the property and then they can negotiate a direct sale.
Okay, thanks.
So if option one occurred where no bid or such a low bid was submitted that the property doesn't get sold and HUD takes ownership and then has the opportunity to negotiate a direct sale, that's where the CPC application comes into place. There is still plenty of time between now, well, let's say option one occurs and the auction is unsuccessful. There would then be plenty of time between then and when the language of that CPC application could be finalized and the purpose of, or the future purpose of that property could be ironed out through a public process. The town has no current, strong position on the future purpose of that property. The application was written in a way to encompass as many options as possible, knowing that if we got to that point, we could narrow it down through a process with the community. Also, if the result of the auction is unsuccessful, HUD is still in a position looking to recoup the fund, the money that they're owed, and the town is still in a position of being owed money. So we believe that, if we got to that point in time, we would be at an advantage in that negotiation, that we could potentially get a better price than anyone else. It may not be the full, 1.1 million that the application is currently, the number that's currently included in that application.
Is that number, Jamie Leader, hi, it's an appropriate time for me to speak or ask a question?
Look, can I just, Jamie, if you don't mind, I just want to take
Sure.
1 minute. I'm going to try to, and Tony, thanks for that. I'm going to try to sort of summarize or restate what you said, Tony. So there's two things going on here. Right now, the current effort is working with HUD to recoup as much as possible of the back taxes owed to Nahant. It's a lot of money. And so we got to do whatever we can. It's our responsibility to do whatever we can to recoup those back taxes. We're cautiously optimistic that we can recoup more than the small amount that HUD initially offered us. That's what we're trying to do. Regarding the town buying the property, as Tony pointed out, we can't bid on that property at the HUD auction because we don't have authorization from town meeting. We can't spend any money that hasn't been authorized by town meeting. So as Tony pointed out, if the property goes to auction and HUD receives an offer that they deem acceptable, then the property is sold to whoever makes the accepted bid, and the town's involvement ends. However, if HUD does not receive an acceptable bid, presumably because the offer isn't high enough, there might be an opportunity, assuming town meeting authorizes the funds, for the town to negotiate a solution where HUD gets the money they need and we get our tax money and ownership. So we needed to put in that CPC application by the deadline, understanding that it's unknown what will transpire when this HUD auction actually takes place. So that's my attempt at summarizing Tony's statements.
Thank
And
Thank you
with
for the
that-
clarity. It's a learning process.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add one more thing.
Yeah.
That's a little nuance here. So the town is owed a large sum of money. I won't mention the amount, but significant. And the town has placed a lien on that property based on those past taxes, but that lien is against the estate of the property. It's not against HUD. So, town council, correct me if I'm misstating this, but if the property is under the control of HUD, they are not technically responsible for our back taxes. Is that correct?
That's right. And it's the key part here is that the taxes were deferred due to the senior property tax deferral in, I think, Chapter 5, clause 41A. That's the key here. And the language of that statute specifically states that reverse mortgages take priority over these senior deferments, which is very rare. It's extremely rare event that's occurring here. And unfortunately, we're caught up in the middle of it. But you're right.
A quick question, Dan.
Yeah.
At what point, or is there a point in time where, what's the best use for that property? Is that something that we'd argue later or now?
Well, that's a good point, Gene, because Tony's absolutely right in saying that if HUD does not accept any bids at the upcoming auction, which is yet to be scheduled, then HUD is in a position to deal directly with us. And they want to deal directly with us because they would love to see this property turned into open space, turned into recreation, a historical site, maybe even affordable housing. But the key is that if we are going to be in a position to buy directly from HUD after a failed auction, we have to dedicate the property to one of those uses. We can't, so to speak, tip it and then sell it to a private owner for a profit. That would be that would prevent us from buying it in the first place. So,
Thank you.
okay, good.
And if I can follow up on that, we haven't conducted that discussion yet because the auction comes first. It's very possible that the auction is a success and our opportunity to purchase the property disappears. So if we get to that point, we then have time before we go to town meeting to talk with the community about, what type of future use of this property, so long as it meets also the CPC requirements, would they be in favor of? And we can limit the language in the article at town meeting so that we couldn't go beyond it. For instance, if the community does not desire affordable housing as a future use, we don't include that in the language on the warrant. We can't then develop it for affordable housing. So that discussion is a, it's a public, it's really like directed by our conversation with the public. It's also, some of it is a feasibility based, historic preservation. What's it going to take to actually preserve that building? Is it worth, what's the value in that? Is it worth it? How much would it cost? What's the timing? So we did a walkthrough with, members of the CPC committee, Lynn Spencer and David Wilson. Also, the Board of Selectmen, members of the Board of Selectmen were there. Dan Scripp was there. Austin Antrim as well from Nahant Fire and CPC were there. We looked at the property. It certainly has historic value. The property needs a lot of work, again, those are all details that, what would be the appropriate future use of the property? That's a hard question to answer. It would be dictated by, a lot of it would be dictated by what the public would desire and what's feasible.
What if we have a public forum, as you suggested, and at the conclusion of that, it's concluded that folks would like a 1 or 2 single-family home lots. How does that proceed from there?
Well, as Dan just said, the town can't buy the property to then flip it for private residential development. We would the only housing, if the town were to get involved, the only housing we could do would be affordable housing, senior housing, something of that nature. But we can't, if that's what the public would desire, then, really the town can't really get involved in purchasing the property.
Well,
Right.
that takes me back to my original question. Could a private party purchase that, let's say, from those that have control of it now, the family that has
If the
trust?
if the auction's a failure, then HUD takes ownership of the property, then they can negotiate a direct sale with us or a private entity, I believe, Dan, right? But obviously, as Dan mentioned, in discussions with HUD, they would give us the first option.
Okay,
And I think we should open it up to the public. And I think that, again, future use of the property only comes into play if the auction fails. So I don't want to, I think we should get some input from the public and understand where they're going. We don't have to make a final decision tonight. It may be that we don't even have a chance to purchase the property. So
Yeah, I think we want to obviously hear what the public has to say tonight, but practically speaking, public forums and hammering out the details of the costs of historic preservation or conversion to a public park or even public housing should wait until after the auction is over, because if it sells at auction, then our involvement as a town is over.
and just one last thing I'd like to say too before we get to public comment is the auction was scheduled for yesterday, the 15th. HUD decided to postpone that auction. We don't know why. We don't know until when. The town did not ask them to postpone the auction. We were just as surprised as everyone else.
Just on an educational question, is there, once the CDC puts in an application, does that any way take off the table or prohibit the option? And I'm not saying I'm invested in this option, I'm just really here to learn, to somehow resell that property for private sale and revenue for the town.
Jamie, do you mind so for this public forum, do you mind just saying your name?
Oh,
and
sure, I'm sorry. This is the first meeting that
Okay.
I've taken that hasn't been a larger meeting. My name is Jamie Leader and I'm at 171 Wilson, property owner.
So, thank you.
You're welcome.
The community preservation funds can only be used for certain types of purposes. Yeah, if we were to use CPC funds to purchase this property, we would not be able to flip it for profit, as you suggested. And Dan, you had mentioned that, is there another limitation that prevents us from doing that too?
Well, first of all, HUD would not allow it. They would only sell to us if we would use the property for some sort of CPC type purpose. Because if we can take it and flip it, well, then so would HUD. And HUD would say, well, why can't we make that money? Why give it to the town?
Right.
So we would be limited to those four purposes in the CPC environment. And you can bet that if and when it comes to sign an agreement with HUD, there would be a right of first refusal to benefiting HUD, should we try to use it for some other purpose.
It's very helpful. Thank you.
And I think Dan, and Mr. Chairman, that's the crux of the matter. I mean, if it comes to that point, I think the town should decide how they want to use the CPC funds, if they want to do it or not. If it's open space, if it's housing or whatever it is, that should be the decision of the town.
Absolutely, yeah.
Correct.
I see Suzanne's hand is raised. I'm going to ask her to unmute and announce your name and address and your comment or question, please.
Hi, Suzanne Macarelli, 15 Little Nahant Road. Thank you, Tony, for the full explanation there. Personally, I've been watching it since December, actually before December 15th. December 15th is when the town of Nahant filed for a taking of the property for $311,000 back taxes owed. That's public on the Salem Registry of Deeds. But prior to that, you know, all the abutters here have been watching it. The house has truly fallen into such extreme disrepair. I'm kind of shocked it hasn't been condemned by the Board of Health by now. I mean, Karen Rignanti spoke earlier about how shards of glass fly out of the windows into our yards when it's windy. You know, we were all actually very anxiously awaiting the auction. We were very excited for the auction. So this is kind of all taken us by storm a little bit here in Little Nahant. And I guess aside from that, I know all three selectmen are passionate about open space. They strongly supported preserving it at East Point. And if open space is worth saving at East Point, then I think Little Nahant should be equally deserving. So my question is, I want to know why each of you won't commit to open space in this part of town by writing it into the CPC article.
So it is, as I mentioned, the CPC article was written as, you know, to encompass all elements allowed for under the CPC eligibility.
Mhm.
But I'll let the selectmen speak to answer.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. I actually want to know from each of the selectmen, because they could actually submit the CPC article with a specific use. We learned that from East Point. So why isn't open space good enough for Little Nahant?
Well, first of all, Suzanne, I don't subscribe to your premise that open space is not good enough for Little Nahant.
I agree.
My preference would be that it be a public park, but as we just discussed, we will go through the process of listening to the public to find out what the consensus is and the preference is before making that decision.
I would agree with the chairman. I mean, my first preference is open space. It's not my decision. I'm only one member of the community, and I'd be interested in listening to everybody else in the community.
I think there's no doubt that we'd all go along with open space. I think that would be great to have that opportunity. But if you take a look at this, and you're about 200 yards from a playground, you're 200 yards away from a 7/10 of a mile beach. The question is that where you want to put your monies, into open space, which is just an extension a couple of 100 yards away? I don't know. But yeah, of course, open space would always be the answer.
And as town administrator, thinking with my financial hat, having a private developer come in and, build a beautiful single family home or jump through hoops that may or may not be an option to split it into 2 lots and build 2 beautiful homes. On my financial perspective is that's great for the town. That's added tax revenue. It improves the value of the neighboring, the abutting properties. That's a great thing for us as a community. But sometimes, as the, town officials, you're in a position to, go beyond just what's financially the most beneficial to the community. And I know that open space, it's needed in Little Nahant. I can tell you that, I do have a soft spot for the historic value of that property. It has to be one of the oldest, residencies in the town that's still standing. And, I would hate to see it go. I would love to see it in its glory days. But, what does that cost, and what would be the use of it? Even if you got to that point, what would it be used for? So I see value in all 3 of those options, and interested in what the community thinks too.
Loud and clear. Got it, guys.
Thanks, Suzanne. Karen?
Hi, good evening, everyone. So lovely to see everyone. And I thank you for putting this on the list for tonight's discussion. I wanted to make a point. I had a couple questions. But
Karen, can you just announce your full name?
Yes, of course.
address
I'm so
for the
sorry.
public?
Karen Rignanti, 14 Howe Road. And so I have the joy of being the closest building to their house, to the house. And just a little background. So, my parents, Lee and G. Rignanti, they built the house my house in 1956. And so that's 66 years ago. And I think, just from a perspective, having lived here for so much of my life, obviously I left for a while, but I'm back and now own this home, which I'm delighted to be living here, is that, it's an amazing private street. It's quiet. It is. I think it's one, and I may be prejudiced because I live here, but I think it's one of the most lovely streets we have in Nahant, where it's quiet. It's a cul-de-sac. There are beautiful homes on it. There's not, people don't come typically in part, there's an integrity to the street. And there's also, several multi-generational families that are here. So there's, now me, I'm second generation, the Macarellis, the Browns, the Gerstenhabers, and there's really a history just within our little micro neighborhood here that is, it's really, really special. And so I just first wanted to convey to everyone that if there was ever any doubt, we care. Not everybody may be here tonight because people had other commitments. Some people are out of town, some people are working, they just couldn't get here. They wanted to be here. But I think not only people on my street care and the surrounding neighborhood, like Suzanne Street, Little Nahant Road, but I think people in Little Nahant care what happens to this. So I just wanted to first make that point in case anybody was wondering. I mean, we all thought, so I'll go beyond what Suzanne's saying, in that we have been watching, many of us, what is going to happen to this place for, many years, because it's been in such disrepair. And, as Jean and I were talking about before the call, the shards of glass during a storm come, they fall on my pool cover, or, I'm picking them up constantly. I do like glass collection in my yard, so, and this has been going on for years and years and years. So it isn't just recently that we've been watching. We've all been waiting with almost holding our breath, praying that the thing doesn't fall down. You know, they've had major floods within the building. So I don't know how, not only, there's so many structural issues. There's a lot of issues. Anyhow, so that's first point. Second point is, so we all thought, oh, great, it's finally going to auction. Okay, great. And then the auction didn't happen, it got canceled. So we're all like wondering, and we didn't hear from you guys. You know, I think my second point is we would really appreciate if you could just let us know, like even Tony, thank you for saying this, but even just letting us know that you weren't involved with the cancellation of it and the town, and that you didn't know. I mean, even just knowing that, because we're all speculating, saying, oh my goodness, what's going on? They canceled the auction. We haven't heard anything. It would help us a lot if you could just, even if you don't know, just let us know you don't know. So that's point number 2. And point number 3, and going to what both Jean and Tony were saying, is that, you know, there's an integrity to the street where it is all private, single, residential, family homes, right? And many of them are lovely. You know, mine is by far not the loveliest house on the street. There are many spectacular homes in the street. And I'm saying this not only for myself, but being in a butter, but really just from a neighborhood perspective, I think if it's at all possible that vision and we could somehow or other create that it becomes a single family, or as Tony was saying, you know, I mean, I know enough to be dangerous probably from my father and you know, my family. You know, there are lawyers that do property development, right? So I know enough to be dangerous, or at least to ask that, you know, may be possible to subdivide it and through a variance create 2 lots, you know, 2 lovely homes, you know, one, but it's still single family. It's still a single family street and neighborhood, and then with the beach. One of the things, I mean, people ask me all the time, people come, you drive up, I'm sitting on the porch. I can't tell you how many people say, what's going on with that house? Is that house going for sale? Gosh, I'd love to know. And I don't ask, you know, well, do you have a business card or are you a property developer? But there has been a lot of interest, you know, over the years. And so where I'm going with this is that, you know, it would be wonderful to know, you know, I had heard that the auction was delayed for 30 days. And so it would be really helpful to know, well, what happens after the 30 days and to find out what is HUD's plans. And then if they are going to have the auction and that is going to happen, you know, if there's a way in which we can encourage people, because I can imagine, you know, in today's real estate market, if people knew about the auction, and somebody that's got like 3 or 4 million that's like, you know, like wants to develop their own home and they're looking for a beautiful piece of property. I mean, 30,000 square feet, you can do quite a bit with it. And, or even 15,000 square feet. You know, if people knew that it was available, then, you know, maybe it's possible that this vision of continuing the integrity of the street and the neighborhood could be realized, and somebody would come to the auction and bid on it. And that to me would be, you know, the best of all worlds. And then, you know, we get the real estate tax money, which, as Jean mentioned earlier, you know, we so desperately need between, my gosh, you know, we got a $14 million budget. And if I understood you, Tony, correctly, 12 million of it is going towards sewer, right? So, I mean, we need money. But on the same hand, it's like, there's global warming, seas are rising. We're really going to need to be doing other stuff. So there, you know, that would help. That keeps the integrity of the street, and it could turn out to be really beautiful. The other thing, and this is, this is just kind of tangential, but some people, they come because they want to go to the beach. And again, this is because I'm on the deck. And people will ask me, they're like, well, can we park? And is this what Nahant's like? This is my first time to Nahant. And oh, I didn't realize that, it's so lovely. So we're a little bit of a marketing arm for Nahant, Howe Road, in that people come down our street and they're like, oh, wow, this is what Nahant's like. And then I'm like, guys, you cannot park here. You're going to get a ticket or you're going to get towed. And you can't park anywhere in Nahant. And I don't know how many of them then try to venture.
Hey, Karen, I hate to interrupt, but would you be able to wrap it up pretty soon?
Yeah, that was my last
I'm
point,
sorry.
Josh.
I'm sorry to be rude, but
yeah, no, my last
we
point
have some other
was-
things we have to get to.
Yeah, it's just that, and obviously we can say more later, but it's just that I think that the street speaks well, is what I'm trying to say. It speaks well, and the way people, take care of their property here, except for next door, that, that's really the only eyesore we've had. That it just speaks well for the town as well. And I just wanted to make that point. And then if the town was to actually, if it did turn out that all option number 1 and number 2 worked out, happened, and it ended up being that nobody bought it, my vote would be for open space, like Lodge Park, and we can talk about that later, but I just kind of wanted to, so thank you, Josh.
Yeah, you're welcome. And
Sorry if I got carried away there, but
that's all right. And
I'm a bit passionate about it.
Certainly the place has been in disrepair for a long time. And I guess the good news is it seems one way or another that will be changing pretty soon. I certainly appreciate you being here and saying that you care. That this is why we're doing this. We're not doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for you all, and we hope to have a solution that enhances your neighborhood, whether it be a couple single-family homes or open space. But this is the process we're in, and thanks for your input, because honestly, for me, it makes me feel better to know that people care, and hopefully we can create a better environment over there.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And if I could just, a couple quick comments on what you mentioned there. Communication it's always tough from our perspective. We can post meetings, and if people choose to attend or not, that's our way to communicate with the neighborhood. But we have every desire to improve upon that. And if we're hearing from the neighborhood that, there's a lack of communication and that's an issue, and, being informed is an issue, then we want to improve upon that. And we have been in the process of, we will be reaching out to the Little Nahant community in the next week or two. We've been hoping to schedule a neighborhood meeting via Zoom to talk about other items related to Little Nahant, such as the Short Beach Dune and the Little Nahant and the playground. So we will be hoping to schedule that in the upcoming weeks. And 9 Little Nahant Road maybe we'll have some type of update, or maybe we can use that meeting to collect emails so that we can kind of form an email group, so to speak, of the neighborhood, so that we can help improve on that communication. So I appreciate you saying that, and we'll do whatever we can to improve upon it.
Tony, can I just ask, are you allowed to post on Facebook on the Nahant residence site? Can you communicate that way to us?
No, so we use our main form of communication is these meetings and our website. We utilize the Nahant Town Hall social media platform of Facebook to attract people to these meetings or to our website. You know, engaging in official public conversation via social media platforms is a tricky thing to do. And it's better to, you know, have these organized meetings where we can, you know, have, you know, productive conversation. So, you know, as I said, if we could create, you know, if there was some type of, like, I have a neighborhood email chain for the folks in the Lowlands neighborhood. When I have updates to inform them of, I use that email chain to get information to them or to potentially organize a neighborhood Zoom meeting. You know, so maybe something like that would be helpful.
That'd be great. That would be so great. Yes, so helpful. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, I had one question. This is for Dan Script. And I know, Dan, we talked about this during the executive session last week, but I can't quite remember clearly the answer. So the question is, if the town has a lien on the property, how can it be sold with a clean title?
Because it's a good question. And that's because the lien actually goes with the property owner, which in this case is the estate. And it would be something in the form of a tax lien, but it's more appropriately referred to as a senior tax abatement lien. And it doesn't what we call run with the property. It would run with the property owner, which in this case would be the estate if it doesn't sell for enough money for us to get paid. And the estate, as you can imagine, is probably bankrupt. We're in the process of pursuing that now. I just spoke to the Sun last week, but my guess is that is going to be a red herring, and our best chance of recovering is working with HUD to try to strike a deal.
All right, thanks.
Hello?
Hey,
So
Hello?
Dan, that seems like to be a loophole in the law, right?
You know, Tony's already reached out to, I think if I remember correctly, no, we were possibly going to reach out to our local Congress people to point out that this is not the intent of the law. The intent of the law was to certainly help older folks stay in their home, but not double dip with regard to getting benefits from reverse mortgage and also getting benefits in the form of a tax deferral to the detriment of the town. That's not what this is all about. And this is, you're right, a loophole that we are getting stuck in.
That sounds like it to me.
Yeah.
hey, just before we close this out, in the inspection that we went through, Tony, Josh, I think you were up there. We both went up to the top of this tower, which I think is like 5 stories, and all those windows up there are blowing out. And I've been contacted by several residents now, including Karen Regnati, who you just heard describe what's happening. Is there some way in the interest of safety that we can intervene and block off those? Still a lot of glass up there.
I think, you know, our threshold to get involved would be if the hazard is affecting other people. And it sounds like it is. That's new information. We didn't really have that before. So I think that, you know, through Dan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if we're hearing from neighbors that, you know, items like glass or shingles or siding, you know, neglected pieces of this property are, you know, affecting the neighbors, the abutting property, do we have the authority to you know, direct them to fix that issue?
Yeah, so there are 2 things we're talking about here, telling you, well, one that we've come to learn tonight, and that is that folks around the property are having issues with essentially trespass, right, through some sort of objects. We didn't know that. We also didn't know that there are 2 people living there. We didn't know that either. So this is all new information to us. And with those 2 pieces of information, we are certainly much more empowered through either Wayne Wilson or John Coulon to take action. There's no doubt about that. In the form of action, we can certainly reach out to the estate and ask them to take some measures to prevent what is happening over there in the form of maybe some sort of trespass or even getting those folks out. But if the push comes to shove, we can take more aggressive maneuvers for sure.
That'd be great.
So I know, Michelle's got her hand up and George was unmuting himself a minute ago. So I'm gonna go to Michelle first and then I'll go to George.
Hi, thanks, Tony. So Michelle Capano, 29 Ocean Street. So I think this has been a great, healthy conversation on something that we'll be talking about for a while. I think one of the things just listening tonight is, and by way of feedback, is making sure that whatever you come up with, you have that definitive plan in a way that's considering all the residents. Because one of the things I think people will struggle with is a potential taking something off the tax rolls, and how is that revenue going to be replaced? We haven't talked about that. And the other thing is, lots of great ideas, right? Open space, elderly housing, but I think, and it's not clear to me if you have the resources available that can work and support Dan Skirp in a way that can help, pull all of that information together. So one of the recommendations or suggestions I would make is probably do a quick online public survey from the town website to get some immediate feedback. People know about this, and I think, using the social media pages and just getting it out there to people, you might get some immediate feedback that can help guide on, what the direction of the residents are. And then still have those public meetings to get more feedback and build upon it. Because then you can have a storyboard going into a town meeting that says, here's the article, and we want to do A, B, and C. And it's backed by different levels of community feedback that have been built upon over the next, you think the next, say, 10 weeks leading up to town meeting. It's aggressive, but you're going to need support behind that. And whether it's an ad hoc committee that the Board of Selectmen think about putting together with a few people that can help be the backbone to that, I think it would be advantageous and certainly valuable, because then going into that town meeting, if we have to vote on it, people want to plan. People want to know exactly how much it's going to cost, where revenue is going to be replaced, what are the plans moving forward. I don't think people have an appetite again to sit through another Coast Guard housing committee that we went through and let people go through, reviews and assessments and stuff. I think going through this time, people are going to want an immediate decision.
I'll put.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, thanks. A lot of good ideas as always. I guess I would. Well, I'd like to know when the surveys, the auction is actually going to take place. We don't know that yet, but I'm a little reluctant to put together committees and surveys and stuff like that for something that might not come to pass. So kind of hoping the auction takes place
Josh,
soon.
So I get that. I hear that, right? Obviously you don't need to action a committee, but the survey, at least you get some resident input while you're waiting for HUD to act on it, right? And they can do whatever they want. They can say they'll do it in 30 days and then they could delay another 30 days because who knows? The estate could be working with a real estate person, and there could be other activities going on that we're not privy to. And there could be other bidders looking to put together some type of package that says, yeah, I'll take the property with these conditions, right? And before you know it, the town could be hit with one of those conditions to say, would you let us subdivide the property to two 15,000 square foot lots? We don't know yet, but a survey isn't really going to hurt anybody. It's going to just what it's going to do is raise awareness and understand residents' sentiment around, do we want to acquire this property? What options would you like to see done with it? What would you see best use for the community, right? Karen made some really good points. She wants to keep the integrity of her neighborhood the same. I don't blame her. But if there are other ideas floating around that we haven't heard from other residents, then we should consider them. And the survey can help do that in a way. And then you can think about having that committee to kind of process it afterwards.
Michelle, I think it's a good idea. One of the things that come to mind is the Heritage Trail in Nahant. And the Heritage Trail in Nahant starts at Shot Beach and goes over to Bailey's Hill and all. And hopefully we can extend it longer, but it would be great if we could extend that Heritage Trail up into Little Nahant and more. In my
Yeah,
opinion.
that would be great. And I guess I'm going to take 1 minute to sort of chime in with a personal philosophy, and that is on the revenue side. I think it's a slippery slope to focus entirely on revenue, because then you just build and build and build, and soon you're overbuilt. And Nahant is a pretty built up place, and Little Nahant in particular. So to me, there's a lot of value in open space, and to the abutters and really all the residents of Little Nahant, I personally think open space park would enhance the value of your real estate, and as well as the quality of life that you enjoy. So obviously we would miss out on some tax revenue, but it isn't always about building so much that we get extra real estate taxes. Sometimes it's about the quality of life we enjoy.
Yeah, and I like Michelle's suggestion. The only add on there is that I would want to make sure that it's very clear, that survey and those opinions only become real if the auction's a failure. We have to figure out a way to make sure that's clear, because, from what I'm hearing through comments, prior to tonight and tonight, is that there's a lot of confusion about this process and what the town is doing. And, I think it's very important that the town understands that, we do not have a say in this property unless the auction is unsuccessful. We have zero control over the future of that property unless the town is in a position to potentially purchase it. Of course, if someone were to submit a successful bid and purchase the property, for how, the only thing it's zoned for is housing and single family housing. So there's that protection there, keeping the integrity of the neighborhood. The only thing that could potentially surpass that is an affordable housing development, because we don't meet our current 40B threshold. We don't have a say in that. So I like the idea of getting input from the neighborhood, and very much want to get direct input from the Little Nahant neighborhood about, especially the abutters, about what they like to see there, but broadly from the community as well. I just would like to be clear about, I don't want people to think, oh, we have this great opportunity, we're going to build this great park or build housing or save this property, and then private person comes in and bids a price that HUD accepts, and all of that goes out the window. So as long as we're clear about it so that the message is understood, I think there's a way to achieve it. All right, so next was George. Are you still on the line, George Mahovan?
Yes, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, hi, George Mahovan, 64 Lennox Road, Nahant, Mass. You just touched on that, Tony, about if, excuse me, the sale goes through and a private entity buys the property, and you mentioned the 40B with the size of the lot, size of the building, the height of the building. What could they possibly put there? I mean, Mr. Canty said that the height of the tower is almost 50 feet, 5 stories. Could they possibly go in and put in some kind of 3 or 4 story apartment complex under the 40B rule? And if so, can the town, what can we do to prevent that? That's my biggest concern. Open space would be obviously the best for us in Little Nahant because we don't have much of open space in Little Nahant. Second would be to be single family homes, but my big worry is a contractor coming in with the 40B and putting some kind of monstrosity in there because of the original height of the building, the size of the lot, and the size of the building. I believe the building is 8,000 square feet. The lot is almost one acre, I believe. So what can we do to stop that or prevent that, if any? Thank you.
Thanks, George. It's a good question. Again, we can't take part in the auction. So there's no way for the town to stop a private developer from bidding a significant amount of money on the property and HUD accepting that. So we can't stop it there. If the auction is unsuccessful, the town has an opportunity to purchase the property for historic preservation, open space, affordable housing, any one of those items that we would have a public process to determine. But if the town does not take advantage of that opportunity, then HUD could then sell the property to anyone. And again, same risk. Dan Script, could you briefly, generally answer the question of, what parts of our zoning can be surpassed by a 40B development?
Just generally speaking, they can ignore most of our zoning, right? Setbacks, height, things of that nature. There is a limitation to that. I'm not exactly sure where that line is, but they have the ability to overcome a lot of those things with a comprehensive permit through the ZBA. And that is a fear that we have. And the reason why they can do that is because oddly enough, we need more affordable housing around town, right? So we don't meet the threshold, which allows us to really fight these 40Bs. Now, I'm not suggesting that someone can go there and build a 10-story building. That's silly, but they do have a lot of leeway in terms of what a developer can do there. Now, I can say that my memory is that there's plenty of frontage on Little Nahant Road, but I don't think there's so much on Howe Road. So that might be an issue there.
What's the opposite?
The opposite.
It's the opposite.
Oh, okay, the opposite. One of them was deficient, one of them was more than enough. So that might be an issue there, but the 40B project is certainly hovering over our head, but that's not this Little Nahant, that's over the entirety of Nahant.
No, I understand that, but I'm curious about how high they can go. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to go 10 stories. I mentioned maybe 4 stories. And how many units could they put in that with the size of the lot and everything? I don't know if these questions can be answered right now. I think Tony's got the right idea about putting together some kind of community group to discuss maybe what we could do moving forward if you think that's possible, or if it's advantageous.
I can try to have an answer. I can try to have a more in-depth answer for that question for our neighborhood meeting.
Okay, and when and how would you promote or advertise this neighborhood meeting? I know you have my email address, but
we were gonna post it on the community calendar with a Zoom link, and I was gonna do a robocall to make sure people knew about it.
Mhm. That sounds good. Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome. All right, is there anyone else on the call that's question, comment?
Anything in the chat, Tony?
No.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is vote to award town hall and library envelope restoration bid. We have a motion.
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve Greenwood Industries to receive the bid award for the Nahant Town Hall and Library Envelope Restoration bid and authorize the town administrator to sign the bid award contract.
Seconded.
Discussion. So I believe this is a CPC funded restoration, and a few bids have been received, and the awardee has been identified. I don't know, Tony, if you wanted to add anything to that.
Yep, the town authorized $500,000 through the Community Preservation Act at last year's town meeting for exterior envelope restoration to the library, town hall, as well as improvements to the Green Lawn Cemetery wall. This RFP, also, the library was able to secure a $50,000 grant from Mass Historical Commission, which has some pretty aggressive timeline dates that we need to meet. So we put this bid out prioritizing the library envelope work, and then secondary to that, any common construction activity happening at the library that is needed at the town hall. So that bid went out. We received bids on January 10th. We got 3 bids. The lowest was Greenwood Industries. The base bid was for $436,000. And there were 4 add alternatives to the RFP. We have enough funding, the total of which of $550,000, to award the base bid to Greenwood, plus alternative 1 of $9,000 and alternative 2 of $40,000. Alternative 3 and 4 exceed our current budget. We are applying for CPC funding again so that we can accomplish alternative 3, 4, and hopefully go out to bid for work at the Green Lawn Cemetery wall next year. Any questions? Okay.
Any discussion, Mark or Jean, before we vote?
No, I don't.
No.
Okay, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Josh Antrim, aye. Next item on the agenda is preserving East Point. I don't really have anything to add. Just the various cases that were reviewed a few weeks back by Town Council Jeff Blake are ongoing, sort of inching through the very slow legal processes. Gene or Mark, anything to add?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd only add that I know we meet 2 times a month, so I like to do like 1 month a year. 1 month every month. They have our legal counsel, give us an update.
Yeah, okay. I think, it was helpful. Jeff Blake gave us a very thorough rundown last time, but certainly a monthly brief update would be helpful. So we can plan on that going forward.
Great idea.
Yeah, and it is, there is quite a bit going on in the background, but it's sort of all in the background. So it's an important topic in town, so it is good keep it sort of top of mind with people. So good suggestion, Mark. Thanks. Okay, town administrators report.
All right, thank you. The first thing on here is update on Essex County mosquito-controlled dredging. We were, as we've been working with mosquito control to accomplish, segments of the dredging work that's needed in town every year. It's a great option for us because we get, pennies on the dollar for the amount of value that comes back. Every town in Essex County contributes to mosquito control, and the amount of work that we are getting from them far surpasses the amount of money we put into them. So it's a great opportunity for us. They also have a streamlined process with the Army Corps regarding permitting, and they know what they're doing. They do great work. So we got a lot of work done last year. Zach and I met with mosquito control, not that long ago about the next step for this upcoming season. Mostly the section behind the Ward Road electrical substation and sewer pump station, and then extending into, and along the Heritage Trail heading towards Flash Road. We got originally they were coming out in January, and then they said they were going to be coming out in February. And in the last 2 weeks, they told us that they, needed some higher level of permitting and weren't going to be able to come out at all this year. Well, Zach and I disputed that decision aggressively and got them to understand that higher level of permitting wasn't required, and we were able to recommit them to coming out this month. So, I thank Zach for all of his work on that, and I'm happy to report that they should be here before the end of the month to, get that work done. Next is Lowlands engineering study. So we talked a little bit about this earlier. Dubois and King is the stormwater engineer that we are hiring to conduct an assessment of historical stormwater issues, evaluation of existing stormwater collection and conveyance systems, conduct an alternative analysis for stormwater system improvements, and provide us conceptual recommendations for system improvements in the Lowlands neighborhood. This is funded through the $100,000 article that was approved at last year's town meeting. The cost for this engineering work is $35,200. So we'll have, leftover funds in that account to extend their services. Should we, as I mentioned, we have a borrowing article in this upcoming town meeting warrant. So should we, retain Dubois and King to usher through some of the improvements that they recommend, we'll have leftover funds in this account, plus hopefully passage of additional funding at the upcoming town meeting where we can make some significant improvements over the upcoming year. And then lastly, town fiber cable upgrade project. We were able to secure $75,000 in the state budget process. So thanks to Representative Capano and Senator Crichton's advocacy, we were able to receive $75,000 to do this telecommunication upgrade. What this project will do is it will install a fiber cable from all of the town's public buildings. So from Johnson School to the DPW, to the fire station, to the police station, to the town hall, and to the library. It's part of the improvement to police radio project that was also approved at last year's town meeting. So it will allow for us to improve their radio systems. It will improve our abilities to connect our cybersecurity throughout all of our public buildings. It will provide us the opportunity to save money on telecommunication costs. So instead of each building having its own Verizon bill for cable and telephone line, just the town hall will have that account, and then we filter it through the fiber cable to our other buildings. So we signed that as well, and that project will soon be underway. So another good, story to report there. And it's 9 o'clock, so I will stop. I'll stop there unless you guys have any questions.
Nope. So let's see if anyone has the stamina for citizens forum. If you want to make any comments, you can unmute yourself or put a comment in the chat.
Hello, Brian Bronick Olmsted, 2 Summer Street.
Right.
I had a general question about, now that the hazard mitigation plan has been approved, what would be the process for the town to work on a comprehensive plan to address our overall coastal defenses? Because I noticed that was one of the bullet items in the plan.
So we have an established municipal vulnerability preparedness plan. Brendan, I feel like you were part of that process.
I was on the MVP committee.
Yeah.
I haven't been involved in anything else. I'm definitely available.
That's what I'm referring to, is the MVP committee. And we had that public process, and we prepared a plan that identified, the town's, most vulnerable assets. What the hazard mitigation plan then does is it takes, that information, adds in, what are the biggest hazardous items or events, I should say, that would, jeopardize those assets, and kind of takes us to the next step of starting to identify, how to improve those assets. So there isn't another comprehensive town-wide plan to be built. We have those 2 as the foundation, and now you kind of go, asset by asset and apply for funding and figure out ways to improve upon them.
Okay, well, I guess I was wondering about more of the comprehensive, because I know we're focusing on Short Beach, and there's other parts along Castle Road where we've got flooding issues, and then we've got over, in Tudor by Willow Road. Then I know, I guess over by the bird sanctuary, past the wharf, there's flooding during certain storm events. So, and I know over Bass Point. So, town-wide, I know we have a number of priorities, and I know we've identified where we need to work, but I wasn't sure if we've actually started to establish the timeline for okay, we can put, start to focus on, we've got Short Beach funding, and we're going after that brick grant now. And that will help us with one piece of Short Beach, but it's not going to address all the issues with Doggy Beach and Short Beach with the overtopping that we have. And the latest information this week about an additional foot of ocean rise by 2050, that pushes the March 2018 storms flooding as much more significant. So that's why I was kind of wondering, how do we work on that comprehensiveness of that's we're basically in a bathtub, and we need to build the rim of the bathtub higher. How do we do that?
So those plans, as I mentioned, those plans kind of identified a number of those vulnerable public properties. And then what we're doing is applying for grants to, study the feasibility of improving upon them. We have FEMA funding for storm repair and mitigation for Doggy Beach, Willow Road revetment at the golf course, 40 Steps, Short Beach. We have applied for MVP. Well, we haven't applied yet, but we submitted our letter of interest to MVP, this current round of MVP, to look at actually Castle Road revetment on private property. That it's a slow process. Should we get that application, we'll be able to look at the feasibility of improving, the private property there that currently makes other private property and town assets vulnerable. We're also applying for the dam and seawall grant program to study the feasibility of increasing the height of Tudor Beach Wall. And as you mentioned, we have the large Short Beach project of increasing the height of the dune. We had an application in through BRIC that's now been transferred to hazard mitigation grant program. So we have a lot of different irons in the fire, so to speak, and all of those are informed by the two plans that we previously mentioned.
I think what he's saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, he's looking at what we can do to mitigate hazards 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road and build a plan for that.
And what I'm saying is we have that. That's what the hazard mitigation plan does. That's what MVP plan does. And that's what these grant applications are submitted to do.
I need a copy of that. Can I get that from Kristen?
What's that?
The mitigation plan?
Yeah, absolutely. The one we voted on tonight?
Pardon?
The one we voted on tonight?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that will be on our website, uploaded to our website.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, but I think, Brendan, that's certainly a good suggestion. And, Tony, we should comb through those and make sure it's thorough. I think we need to, if we haven't already, and maybe but, really prioritize those, lay out the potential funding sources, sort of a lot of, just really capture it, make sure we're not leaving anything behind, I think it's a good idea, Brendan, and we should make sure it's as complete as possible. And I might smell a new town administrator goal for 2023. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, thanks for the suggestion.
Thank you. If you guys need any more volunteers for this stuff, I will be available.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else in the chat or any other comments from those on the Zoom call? All right. If we have no further citizen forum comments, then the Board of Selectmen meeting is now adjourned. Or do we need a motion on that? You think I know?
I move for adjournment of the February 16th Board of Selectmen's meeting.
Second it.
Roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Allen, aye.
Josh Antrim, aye. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.